I'm about to say some pretty unpopular things.
I'm outside Victoria's Secret. The secret is that I just took a diarrhea in the dressing room because I ate too much orange chicken at the Panda Express.
They're making our food out of people. Next thing they'll be breeding us like cattle.
That's right, a protein made from human cells that promises to be cheaper. 6 tons of human meat is engineered every day.
Interdimensional demonic intelligence.
I have a patient with worms in their mouth. She felt things crawling in her mouth at night.
Are you ready? This is 153 pages of the confidential agreement between Moderna and the U.S. government. And it goes back to 2015.
In 76 drugs that were considered safe and effective, but now are off the market because they found they were quite dangerous.
So it looks like there's a sick workshop at 3 p.m. if you want to learn how to bake organic bread-free bread.
That sounds chilly, my man.
Yeah, it could be chilly. I've never had bread-free bread before.
I don't even believe in bread, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
It's just the elites trying to manipulate us, man. Like, get this, gravity, right?
Sure, man.
Okay, so you believe in gravity?
Sure, man.
Island boy, I'm just trying to make it. And I'm an island.
The purpose of education is to change the thoughts, actions, and feelings of students.
Much of the public and sometimes the personal memory of black Indians has been erased.
So Putin's releasing a statement that the public has been consuming Soylent Green. If you know, you know. And I'm curious on how the public's going to react, if they react at all. And for the people that do and have been consuming human meat for so long and have that craving, if the consumption or the supply, gets cut off, what's going to happen to the people with that craving?
Chaos rules, chaos is supreme.
Something very disturbing is happening in the background that I think you should know about. It's time to deploy Palantir to Los Angeles to deal with the illegals. You know you love to see it. You're lying if you say you wouldn't. This is the grand plan. Okay, it's not an accident that cars are burning on the streets and people are waving foreign flags on the streets. There is something they're trying to manufacture consent for. Remember, when they justified the passing of the Patriot Act over 20 years ago, they told us we needed all this extra power to go after the bad guys, to get rid of the terrorists. But almost immediately, the government started to use that extra power they were given to spy on ordinary Americans, right? How can you be so sure that you will not be deemed an enemy of the state one day? There's absolutely no guarantee that this master database won't be weaponized against you. And to be perfectly honest, history tells us that the likelihood is pretty high that it will be used against you one day. So to quote RFK Jr., 1, any power that the government takes from the people, it will never return voluntarily. 2, every power that the government takes, it will ultimately be abused to the maximum extent possible. 3, nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism. The only thing we can do is resist.
The return of Lilith. Lilith is supposed to be the chief demon that didn't want to lay down with Adam. Children was talking about. But they also tell you in the Lilith book by Barbara Black Couture and also in Raphael Pate's book, Hebrew Goddess, that Lilith is supposed to take her seat on the right hand of God. Now in the Kabbalistic text, they say it's about what? They say that the whole shit, the whole Kabbalah is based on the return of the Shekinah, the feminine energy. This is the Kabbalistic text. Gershom Scholem, which is the chief authority on Kabbalistic out of Tel Aviv, died in 1982. They say, well, what's all this Kabbalistic and this Kabbalah stuff? What does it all mean? What's going to happen? He said, ultimately, all this shit is going to turn back into chaos. And chaos is the realm of the great mother. Chaos rules, chaos is supreme.
I also find it interesting that the main woman in this case, now stay with me, she looks identical to Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire, in the movie. I mean, to a T. If you guys were to see these two put together side by side, you would be blown away. And why do I say this? What does this matter? Why is it even important in this discussion? I believe that they put these things right in front of us in plain sight. And it's almost like they're saying, we got away with it. And it makes me believe that this prostitution ring, this child abuse ring that was going on at McMartin Preschool was directly tied to Hollywood. And I think that they were putting it in people's faces and saying, look at what we got away with. We are showing you that this woman was such a great grandmotherly woman. Who could ever think that she would do anything wrong? In fact, that's where the term satanic panic was dubbed from, is this influx and idea of, all this Satanism going on. And now we know that is true.
You think the purpose of education is reading, writing, and arithmetic? The purpose of education is to change the thoughts, actions, and feelings of students.
Starting in 1966, they introduced something in American schools that would have a profound effect that was actually directly designed to transform the attitudes, values, and beliefs of children. What they do is they'll put you in what seems like an impossible moral situation. And they said, guys, you're on a ship, and the ship is sinking, and so now y'all got to jump in the life raft. And they give the kids some more information. Well, you got a doctor, you got a lawyer, you got an engineer, you got a nurse, you got a teacher. Nowadays, I'm sure they would say this one is transracial, this one is LGBT, this one is an oppressed Latinx woman, or identifies as a woman. So now they give some additional criteria. But back then, it was just, you got a doctor or a lawyer. And so the kids get to thinking about this, and I remember this process very well. Well, who should we get rid of? Right? I mean, after all, we don't all want to die. Right? For the greater good that we kill somebody. Well, should we really kill somebody? Well, we have to. Otherwise, if we don't, we're all going to die. Right? And so the kids start thinking about who would be more valuable. Right? They start thinking about what method should we use for selecting who we're going to kill. Should we draw straws? Should we get rid of the lawyer? Right? What possible need could we have for a lawyer? Just kidding, lawyers, don't get mad. But what do you do here? Right? Because mom and dad said you shouldn't murder people. Pastor said you shouldn't murder people. God said in the Ten Commandments you shouldn't murder people. But here we have a situation where the only apparently ethical solution would be to kill somebody to be able to save all the rest. Well, I'll give you the short answer. The really easy answer is, well, how about we don't kill anybody? Right? Why don't I jump outside and I'll swim alongside the raft for an hour, and when I get too tired, we'll just rotate, and then nobody has to die, right? That'd be one possible solution that wouldn't involve killing anybody. But what really happens in the minds of these kids is, mom and dad must know what they're talking about. Right? They told me it's always wrong to murder people. But look, here we have a situation where the only right thing to do is to murder people. Here, the greater good requires us to murder somebody. And so, what do mom and dad know? There's no such thing as objective right and wrong. There's just different shades of gray. Okay? And so what happens is a profound shift in the value system, the ethical system, the moral reasoning of children. In addition to the total discrediting of their parents, their pastors, their religious institutions, the values they were taught at home.
Was racist?
Yeah, I've said that.
You didn't mean. You didn't mean everyone who voted for Trump.
Well, here's what I mean. Because I don't mince words. If you could if you could pull a lever for somebody that had the history that he had, I'm not just talking about the housing discrimination. I'm talking about calling for the death penalty of 5 young boys in New York City for rape. And then when they were exonerated, still hasn't... Central Park 5. Still hasn't apologized, still said, well, they must have done something.
Took out ads in the paper.
Took out ads in the paper. A lot of money. As I worked at the Daily News at the time, that was a $25,000 ad. He did one in the New York Times as well.
Calling for
their death. For rape that they were exonerated for later. DNA evidence proved that they didn't do it. Not only did he not apologize, but he doubled down and said they must have done something. This man, to me, more so than any other candidate, because I can roll with policies that I don't necessarily agree with. And truthfully, as I get older, I'm a little bit more conservative than I was in my 20s. The climate in this country that he fostered and fanned the flames of, both through his social media and through actually what he did at his rallies. This is, take him out, let's beat him. I can shoot somebody and get away with it. And just the disconnect. Your solution to black folk is appointing Ben Carson as head of HUD. having Omarosa as your, outreach person. It's like, it's so insulting that if you could pull a lever for somebody that the KKK did a rally for in celebration, that David Duke and all these alt-right, white supremacists have come out for, it says something about you. Now, you can argue with yourself and say, I voted for jobs.
Or I voted for change.
What kind of change? Unemployment is at a 9-year low. We're gaining 180,000 jobs every single month. Those jobs, those coal miner jobs, are never coming back. That's a lie. We saw the deal with Carrier. That was a smoke and mirrors, bull crap, dog and pony show. If you could really say to yourself, I voted for him because I want, what kind of change are you looking for exactly? I want my country back.
Drain the swamp.
Yeah, then you put all the swamp people in your cabinet. This is saying something.
Karen, respectfully, there are some of my friends who voted for Trump who I can have spirited discussions with them about it, and we can go back and forth. But at the core, all of them racist.
I think that we in this nation have a race problem that we never deal with. And I think that more of us, if 75% of white people have no relationship with blacks, and that's a Washington Post poll, that's on purpose. So your only information about people from outside of your culture is through media, propaganda, movies, or what have you, rap music. And that shapes how you treat people and how you think about them. Then you have some work to do.
Because of generations of prejudice and denial, much of the public and sometimes the personal memory of black Indians has been erased by those who write history and sometimes by those who live it.
At that time, there was a lot of people that was using what we call pencil genocide. In other words, they were changing documents in the town halls and this and that. And unless you had some question about it, you didn't even know it. So, for example, in my dad's family, my Aunt Marion, my Aunt Josephine, and my Uncle Louis were down as Indian. Uncle Lawrence and my father were down as black. My mother's birth certificate, she was born in on Carswell Street, which is Pawcatuck, Connecticut. And the doctor, knowing that she wasn't black, naturally, because he was very well familiar with the Babcock family, put her down as white. And a lot of us were put down as white just so we would not have that stigma of being black.
I was someone in my career who didn't mind talking to fans, whether we're shit or we're just talking, having a good time. I think that makes the experience better for our fans. So I'm talking to this 13-year-old kid and his dad, and we're back and forth laughing. And there's a free throw being shot, and I hear someone say, "Don't talk to my fucking fans," like just like that. And I'm just like, "Huh? No way he's talking to me." And I turn around and it's him in the corner sitting with his wife. And I said, "I'll come over there and smack the shit out of you right in front of your wife." And then ran back down the court because the free throw was shot. He told on me. I ended up getting fined for $25,000 for inappropriate language to, I don't know if they said the crowd or to him, but I'm thinking like, this guy is an owner and he was the one that said, "Don't talk to my fucking fan." I'm not just going to say something to him. I don't even like the guy, so I wasn't going to say nothing to him. But the fact that he came at me first and I responded, how do I get fined $25,000 for it? So that was kind of my last straw. I really didn't like him, but it wasn't something I was going to talk about at the time because I really didn't care. But the fact that, he cost me money, I'm just, man, like, this guy.
In fact, let's skip down to page 104. It shows that the NIH and Moderna were collaborating with Dr. Barrick. Wow. His signature is on page 106 of the Material Transfer Agreement. But let's get back up to the top of the specific agreement. The NIH appears to be transferring the mRNA tech to Dr. Barrick. But look what they want to make clear. Quote, mRNA coronavirus vaccine candidates developed and jointly owned by the NIAID and Moderna.
Accutane, they took it off the market because they found it creates liver damage after 27 years.
We took a scraping from under her gum and worms. We believe they were pinworms. They lay eggs in the mouth. These eggs can then be swallowed. They go into the intestine where the eggs mature into adults. So they can be in other parts of the body. These pinworms can burrow under the skin and cause masses or lumps under the mucosa, and you can see an outline of these worms.
If you've not seen the film Soylent Green, you need to go find it, go watch it.
This film was made in the 1970s, but it's meant to be a futuristic film, and it's set in an overpopulated, dense New York City, set in 2022. So why the name Soylent Green? Well, in this dystopian future, food is scarce, so people are encouraged to eat a processed food which is green. And apparently this processed food is meant to be really, really good for you. It's advertised as a nutritious meal replacement. As this creepy story unfolds, a detective who's investigating a murder stumbles upon something absolutely barbaric. He discovers what Soylent Green is actually made of. That green sludgy food that they're eating is made from people. He uncovers the shocking truth that the government are preying on vulnerable people, taking these people and using them as a food source. How fucking insane is that? But oh my God, doesn't it make you think? In this film, the government tell you that you're having a nutritious food source and it's green because of the plankton that they've put in it, but it's not. In the final scene of this creepy film, which you've got to go watch, Thorne, who is the detective, is taken away and he is shouting, "It's people! It's people!"
Too much of the leadership has gotten deeply involved in the occult and demonic kinds of intelligence.
It is hitting our shelves. This is engineered human meat. That's right, a protein made from human cells that promises to be cheaper. 6 tons of human meat is engineered every day.
Anyone for human meat?
It's really, tender. Good Harvest encourages people who need the income to sign up, select their own extraction site and get paid within the week.
We can harvest people and we can pay them for their flesh. This looks quality. So we're just gonna...
These engineered steaks are grown from the cells of human donors who are paid for their flesh.
Yeah, you've got to chew this one.
What about steak B?
That looks nice. Oh, there's almost a sweetness to this. It's tender, fattier, really tender.
There was one final steak to try. It's part of a new range from Good Harvest that's being kept secret until its launch.
Like a knife through butter, that is. Oh, wow.
3 months ago, Good Harvest revolutionized the food industry. Now, our new product is about to disrupt it again.
Then we have DES, diethylstilbestrol. This was used as a very powerful estrogen that was supposed to prevent miscarriages until they found it causes miscarriages 31 years later.
Okay, watch this. This is a trash man, and I think this is a common practice in these United States, where the trash man takes the trash and he puts it into the container, and then he takes the recycling and puts it into the exact same container. We've seen this before, but what's different about this video is this takes place in Tiburon, California. In this specific city in California, business owners, restaurant owners are fined $100 on their first offense for not separating the trash from the recycling, $200 on their second offense, and $500 thereafter. Then Bo comes and he combines it all and it all ends up at the landfill.
The first time I ever dreamt with my bees, they told me they were in danger. Now, this wasn't like a message from the consciousness of the bees that meant to save the bees on a global level. This was specifically about my hive. I was a first-time beekeeper, and I had a series of dreams that weren't about bees, but I was dreaming with them. Here's how I know. Over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, I had a series of dreams where I was in rooms or enclosures and there was black widows with me. The black widows were always on the ceiling or on the sides, and the problem was their webbing. In each dream, the webbing got closer and closer. The black widows got closer and closer until the final dream, There were no bees, by the way. No bees in these dreams. But on the final dream, I was now in the basement of the house I was living in. And it was like I was in a tunnel of black widow webbing. Super creepy. And I was crawling out to try and not touch any of the webs and touch any of the black widows. I was crawling out of the door. And guess what's on the other side of the door? A few feet away from the other side of the door is the beehive. So I woke up from that dream and knew instantly. It's what I call a knowing. So when you wake up from a dream and you get this, just like, I know, oh my God, it's the bees. They're telling me there's a black widow in the hive by giving me the experience of what they are experiencing. So what do? Skip breakfast, skip coffee, put on my gear, and I go open the hive. And sure enough, not only is there a black widow in the hive, but she has been there long enough that she has built webbing through all of the comb to the point that the bees are cramped. The entire colony is cramped in this tiny space at the front, and they can't get into the back half of their hive, like my final dream. Each dream over the course of these weeks, I was getting condensed into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller spaces because of the web. Black widows prey on bees. So the bees were sending me dreams telling me, this is what we're experiencing, help us. That's how I started dreaming with bees, and I've been teaching it ever since.
So what I got here is a pictorial album in the history of the 1893 World's Fair. This was printed in 1894 in Chicago. Let's let them tell us in their words how this went down, and look at the pictures of what they built in a very short amount of time. So I'm going to bring you around. Now let's try to follow this timeline that's laid out in this book. So it starts as far back as 1882. Chicago was suggested as a proper place for the World's Fair. 3 years later, Chicago Commercial Union League and Iroquois Club appointed a joint committee to take action and report. So 1886. Then it was Chicago businessmen that came forward and began to take action in July 1889. So by July 1889, nothing had still been done. So now we have December 11th, 1889. Senator Cullum of Illinois introduced the first World's Fair bill into the United States Senate. All right. Now, Washington, D.C. and Chicago were going back and forth as who was going to have the World's Fair. Well, February 24th, 1890, all opposition was overcome and Congress voted to have the exposition in Chicago. But we come all the way down here, and it wasn't until June 26, 1890, the funds were released and they had their first meeting of the National Commission. So less than 3 years later, all of what I'm about to show you was built and up and running and ready for a World's Fair. There's a bird's eye view of the World's Fair. Just part of it. This is the electricity and mining buildings. Do you see how big those are? Look how small the people are on those things. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. I mean, they built that in 2+ years. Just look at how big some of these buildings were. The mines and mine building. The dimensions are 700 by 350 feet. The height of the main cornice is 65 feet. The entrance on each side of the building, the grand entrances being at the north and south, these are 110 feet high and 32 feet wide. All right. The transportation building, its dimensions, 256 feet by 960 feet. The floor area was 9.4 acres. Here's the transportation building I was just talking about. And here's one of the machinery hall. Just absolutely massive. And in this entire book, even though they built all this in 2 years, there's not one single picture in here of anyone building anything or anything being constructed halfway through. All they're showing you is the final product. Just look at that detail. All those fountains, that boat, those statues.
Well, what if gravity is just a plot by the elites to keep us down, man?
Whoa.
Shilly, right?
Super shilly.
We gotta keep an open mind. That's what I've been saying ever since I could say things. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what's happening? You're happening, man. I'm happening?
We're all happening right now, bro. You're happening, man.
Oh.
You're happening too, man. What? Yo, you want some bread-free bread? Oh, Shilly, dude, thanks.
You gotta tell them, silent breathing people! We gotta stop them! Stop them!
לא נוגעים, משאירים שלם את החייל, מאוד חשוב, אבל לוקחים מאחרים. ממי? אז עכשיו השאלה מי, תדמיינו ממי לוקחים. בתקופות מסוימות לקחו מפלסטינאים, ואחר כך זה היה עולים חדשים, עובדים זרים.
זה נחשב בנק גדול ביחס לעולם?
זה הכי גדול בעולם.
הכי גדול בעולם?
כן.
מה אחוז התרומות ביחס לאנשים בישראל? כלומר, איזה אחוז...
למה צוחקים?
כי זו שאלה מאוד מוזרה. אני לא יכולה להגיד לך, הוא כל כך קטן.
אז שאלה לא מוזרה, תשובה מוזרה.
תשובה מוזרה. לא, התשובה לא מוזרה. משום שלא תורמים כמעט.
And then you had thalidomide. I don't know how that got passed. That created all sorts of problems with babies coming out with flippers for arms and all sorts of issues. Hey, these things were backed by science. So the main question is, who is funding the study, which many times gives grants to the universities. And then you have industry, which then also funds the universities. And then you have a few nonprofits that do research right here. And then we allow industry to pay certain individuals who sit on boards and committees that regulate a lot of the guidelines in our healthcare. And of course, not to mention the medical journals, which depend on industry money for their advertising. But I think the worst of the worst is that industry is allowed to cherry pick their data and not have to publish the studies that don't align with what they want to. Unfortunately, what we're missing in science is this thing called ethics.
Look, birthright citizenship was, if you look back when this was passed and made, that was meant for the children of slaves. This was not meant for the whole world to come in and pile into the United States of America, everybody coming in and totally unqualified people with perhaps unqualified children. This wasn't meant for that. This was meant, when it was originally done, for the children of slaves.
What the hell? 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 What the hell on? What the hell Berry? What the hell Burton?
Nessa praça, não me esqueço onde era o vivo fez-se o morto, colonial vazio. Nessas tardes, não me esqueço onde era um novo fez-se o velho, aviso pedra fria. Acabaram com o beco, mas ninguém lá vai morar. Cheio de lembranças vem o povo do fundo escuro beco, nessa clara praça se dissolver. Pedra, padre, ponte, muro e um som cortando a noite escura, colonial vazia. Pelas sombras da cidade no dia estranha romaria, lamento água viva. Acabaram com o beco, mas ninguém lá vai morar. Cheio de lembranças.